Welcome to Nitpicking Nerds and yet another Precon Power-Up.
This time, the Golgari Elf Tribal Elven Empire Precon deck.
Elves! I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, BZ, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds. If you didn't know, check us out on Discord. You can go there for free, sample the nerds, and then if you get a better taste for the nerds, you can support the nerds on Patreon.
Yes, and, well, today, Precon Power-Ups. That's where we take the Precon. It comes set as it is, pre-made deck. We take $50, we throw it at the deck, and somehow they combine into a better deck. Super focused, sticking to the game plan, getting rid of all those nasty cards that don't do what we want.
Yeah, we love tearing apart the Precon and then making it into a complete killing machine, capable of winning games at basically any table.
Yes, and it's awesome because these are cheaper ones, so they're like $20. So we take $50, you throw it at, you spend a total of $70, and you've got a pretty powerful deck here.
These Precon Power-Ups, the $20 to $25 dollars and the $50 upgrades, all better than every other one we've done.
Which is awesome. It's good to see that they are really focusing these decks down and making them even better. And we're getting them with each set, which is super cool. So before we start anything, before we do anything, we got to know who the commander is. Who is Lathril, Blade of the Elves?
Well, Lathril, Blade of the Elves, is 2 black-green for a 2/3 elf noble. It has Menace. When it deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens. And you can tap it and tap 10 untapped elves you control. Each opponent loses 10 life and you gain 10 life. So she wants to deal combat damage and then she wants you to have 1,000,000 elves and then she can create some elves. We kind of took the game plan towards, let's just have 1,000,000 elves.
Yes, I also want to mention something. I think for the first time in a long time, I agree with the wording on this tapping ability. I'm glad it does not gain as much as is lost in this case.
Yeah, that's 40-point life swing instead of, well, it's already 40. It'd be 60-point.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's super strong and super good in that it's made the right way in this case. In the other cases, there's some cases where I'm like, just give me 3 life. Is that really broken?
Well, when it's 1 or 2 at a time. But anyway,
exactly.
This deck's game plan is to flood the board with elves and take advantage of tribal synergies to gain card advantage. How are we going to win the game?
Well, we're going to use go wide and tribal payoffs with our big, huge board state to completely annihilate our opponents. They'll be dead. They're gone. Basically, it's just, as we use the word annihilate, basically if we attack them with an Eldrazi.
Yeah, because they're just going to be completely dead. Like, we're just going to make... It's so over the top in this deck. I love it.
If you want to spend an extra $50 on your deck, I know Critterhoof would be good in this deck.
Can confirm. All right, the first and arguably most fun part of upgrading any Precon is to cut the cards that just make you question reality as it is. These weren't too bad, but there's always some cards that just don't fit at all and you got to get rid of.
Yeah, first one is Eye Blight Colors. This one, it's not a bad card, but we're not a sacrifice deck. We're not aristocrats. This is more of an aristocrat-y type card.
Well, this deck can sacrifice elves. I don't want to sacrifice this elf. I want to sacrifice 1 and 2 mana elves and get dice triggers. This is like super clunky.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 5-mana elf, not the game plan. Numa, this is a Commander Legends card. Also, not interested.
No,
Sorry.
We're not playing counters, and we're not in a meta where 2 mana for 1/1/1 counter is relevant at all. So forget about it. Poison the Cup, Casualties of War. Just really weird removal spells. They wanted to make this deck, I can tell, they wanted to make this deck closer to 50-50 black-green. Mm-hmm. That did not persist with the upgrades. We're mostly green. We're like 75-25.
Yeah, Poison the Cup's awful. Casualty Wars is at least a playable Magic card.
I mean, any removal spell needs to be... We're trying to make every single spell an elf if possible.
Yeah, and that's completely fair. I'm just... Like, at least you can see Casualty War. Oh, okay, you can get your value there. Poison the Cup, you get no value. That card's awful. We're in a green deck here, so stuff like Arcane Signet, not necessarily. They can throw it in here, and I wouldn't even argue with it because reprinting this card into the ground is important for it. It needs to really be shot down to like pennies.
It is correct to both put it into this Precon and then for everyone to take it out of the Precon. We're going to play like 12 Arcane Signets in this deck.
Yeah, there's so many better ways to ramp, especially in Elves, if you don't know.
Yes, all the Elves are the Arcane Signet. Don't actually play 12. Return Upon the Tide. It like reanimates a creature, but if it was an elf, you get 2 elves. But it's 5 mana, so I'm immediately off it. Terrible.
Yeah, no, not interested. Serpent Soul Jar, it's like it lets you replay elves only. It's a strange one, not interested.
We don't want to exile our elves because they won't. Then the Serpent Jar is like this target, and then the elves go away. I'm just not about it. And then the Roots of Wisdom, same thing. It's one of the new Precon cards. We're just done. We don't need it.
Yep, not interested. They're just not strong enough, basically.
They're not elves. Everything should be an elf so that we can power out this huge board state. When your elf tribal deck has, let's say, 50 elves, I think this deck has 48 or 48 creatures. Like when you have 50 creatures in your elf deck, you are going to be churning through, drawing, playing a million spells a turn. If you have 20 elves, you're going to be the clunkiest, slowest, awkward start every time. You're never going to get anything done.
Yeah, exactly. You need a high density of elves within your deck to make elf decks function properly, especially when you're not just elf ball, like you want to make a ton of mana, but no, you're elf ball as in you want to do the elf ball ton of mana thing, but on top of that, that creature type matters. So if you're like Rex Sage, amazing because it's an elf. If you want all of your utility stuff to be on elves just like that.
Yes, no Crows and Grips, no Cultivates, no Arcane Signet. It can all be elves fairly simply without giving anything up.
Yes, exactly. So
what do we add?
Yes, exactly. Adding cards that do fit our game plan. The first two, you might know them. They're tried and true. It's Fidehorn Elves and Landwar Elves. Fidehorn Elves actually fitting into budget nowadays because of its recent reprint in Commander Legends. Landwar Elves, it's always been $25, and you can get it for $25. And if you really want that ugly art from Alpha, you can spend like $300 to get it, the Alpha one.
Fidehorn Elves also has a very ugly art from Ice Age, I think it was originally. We also have Arbor Elf and Gnarlroot Trapper. Gnarlroot Trapper it's like a black elf that makes green mana or black mana. It doesn't matter. They're 1 mana dorks that are not as good as the first two because you need either a forest or to pay 1 life with the Trapper. But these 4 cards make up a pretty important set of creatures. They're just 1 mana plays that make mana. And then this deck also has Elvish Mystic rounding out to 5 total.
Oh man, you don't have the Elves of Deep Shadow?
I would, but I actually cut it last second because it was 75 cents.
That's fair. Yeah, budget does come into consideration here. That is a great 75-cent upgrade, though, if you can get there.
Or if you just have one.
Yes, exactly. Whiterwood Symbiote, tried and true. This card is amazing.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's so good. Read it.
It's upside colon upside. It's green for a 1/1 insect. Return an elf you control to its owner's hand. Untap target creature. Activates its ability only once each turn.
This text looks weird because it's not an elf. It says once per turn, and you have to bounce an elf. But bouncing the elf is the cost. You get to do it 4 times a go around at the table if you really want to. And the fact that it's not an elf just is made up for the fact that it's insane.
Yeah, it's completely insane. If you put an elf back in your hand, anything with an ETB, if you have cast triggers for your elves, works with those too. So you just put something back in your hand, you untap a creature, probably going to add some more mana with that.
One of my favorite things to do when I was playing elf deck was just make this crazy board state. Get to the point where, all right, you have to board wipe, and then I'm just going to bounce creatures until you do. By the time you board wipe, I'm just going to play them all again. It's so dumb.
Completely insane and strong. Next, we have Shamanic Revelation, which 3 green for a sorcery. Draw a card for each creature you control. For each creature you control with power 4 or greater, gain 4 life.
That's some nice gravy, but really this is actually one of the only non-elf editions. There's very few non-elf editions, and this one is worth it. It's like 2 cents, and it's going to say 5 mana, draw 6 to 10 cards.
Yes, 6 to 10 cards. You're going to fill your hand up really fast, and you're just going to, play them all out again because you're going to have a bunch of tiny elves again.
This is why Arbor Elf, Gnarlroot Trapper, Landwar Elves, Fidehorn Elves, Elvish Mystic, they're so good. They're creatures. They just come out extremely early as humanly possible. Elvishly possible. And then they produce mana for more creatures, and then you play Shamanic Revelation, refill your entire hand.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty simple. If you don't understand why that's good,
I guess keep watching. We're going to help you.
Yeah, we actually just explained it.
Yeah. Staff of Domination's also in this deck. This is kind of like a budget consideration, but it's not even cheap. It's like $5. It's like the cheapest version of this effect. Basically, we're going to need a way to untap a creature to make infinite mana, and this is one of the cheapest ways to do it. Yeah.
Staff of Domination, solid card. Really nothing wrong with it. And on top of the fact that it does untap your creature, it also is a infinite mana payoff, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's a solid card. I think you need to make infinite mana, and then it's fine.
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't do anything otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, you play it in your decks where untapping a creature is important.
Yeah, all the abilities are really slow. So the last one is Fierce Empath. It's 2 green for a 1/1. Enters battlefield. Search for a creature. Converted mana cost 6 or greater. It goes right into your hand. This is just Demonic Tutor in most cases. Find your big stompy win condition, or you find your crazy over-the-top card draw that we will get to shortly.
Yeah, exactly. We'll go over them in a little bit, what we're going to get with that Fierce Empath. But with any elf deck, we're going elf ball, so we're going to be making tons of big mana. So we're going to want those big threats to top out.
All right, now we get to improve the existing cards. We have what's left, and they all fit. Everything left in the Precon that we haven't cut fits the theme, more or less. But we can do better. So we're going to cut the following elf payoff cards. Eyeblight Massacre, like we said, Voice of the Woods, Crown of Skemfar, Lissalana Scarblade, Timberwatch Elf, Dwynnin, Guiltleaf Dayan, Imperious Perfect, Abomination of Llanowar, Sylvan Messenger, Jagged Scar Archers. Almost all of those I think are bad. The questionable-ish ones, the Crown of Skemfar is good for pumping up Lathril, but I didn't think we need to focus too hard on the combat damage thing with Lathril. There's going to be other lords to pump her up. We're going to be able to hit. I think once you hit with her and make 2 elves, that's all this deck really needs to just start going crazy.
Yeah, exactly. She's just going to keep making elves, and she has menace. She's tough to block.
Yeah, and everything else just is so low impact. I don't want to ping off flyers with the archers. I don't want one big creature that's a 10/10 because I have 10 elves. It doesn't matter. The elves are good because they're 1/1s.
Yeah, Abomination of Llanowar is cool, but it's not great.
It was honestly I think it was the last cut.
Okay.
Abomination of Llanowar. Poor guy. Just couldn't quite get there. And I think maybe I would have included it if we had more of a graveyard mill theme. There's only a couple mill cards.
Yeah, that's fair. First Warrior with Symbiote as payoff for elves. We already know what that does. We went over it. Azuri Renegade Leader, absolutely awesome. Can regenerate your elves. And on top of that, you can pay and just pump all your elves and make them super strong.
Yeah, you activate it once. That could be enough to kill somebody. But you don't have to just activate it once. If you make 1,000,000 mana, all right, activate it twice, that's going to kill people.
Yes, exactly. Realm Walker, another brand new card, a brand new threat from a brand new set, as we often say here on the Nitpicking Nerds.
Coined it.
He enters and you name elves, and then you can look at your top card at any time, and if it's an elf, you may play it.
Well, look, another payoff for half of our deck being elves. You can just every time you cast an elf, you're drawing a card. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing. It's just perfect filler for it's cheap card draw. It's an elf. It's going to pay off your elves. It's great. Elvish Guidance is one of the cards I don't see people playing enough. It's 2 and a green for an enchantment, but you enchant a land, and the enchanted land now taps for green equal to the number of elves you control.
Yeah, I mean, I barely know this card exists. I've seen it a couple times, and I will forget as soon as we're done recording this video, actually.
Yeah, it's really good. It's kind of like a budget build your own Gaia's Cradle. All your creatures are going to be elves anyway, except for Wirewood Symbiote.
Yeah, that's fair. Next one, Priest of Titania, taps for green equal to your elves. Okay, do I need to tell you why that's good? We have 48 elves in the deck.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as Elvish Guidance. Elvish Guidance, I like that it dodges removal a bit. Even after a board wipe, you don't feel too bad. You're just like, okay, play 2 elves. Now this taps for 2, and next turn it'll tap for 5 again.
Yeah, I mean, Elvish Guidance has the ability to dodge board wipes, but Priest of Titania has the upside of being an elf.
And cheaper. One cheaper. Priest of Titania was like $5. I had to splurge for it. That type of effect of adding green for each elf is so good. And this deck already has the 4-mana version and the Elvish Archdruid 3-mana version.
And if you're thinking, what would you do if you weren't on a budget and you had an extra $1,000? Gaia's Cradle, actually.
I would consider Gaia's Cradle and the boring suite of cards that tutor up Gaia's Cradle. So there's also Birchlaw Rangers, which is the budget Heritage Druid, which I could not afford. So for those people who have been asking what are the non-budget, we're kind of just dropping them throughout the video. Heritage Druid's pretty sweet. But we have Birchlaw Rangers instead. It's green for a 1/1. I don't care about morphing it. It's tap 2 elves, add a mana of any color.
Yep. And this is not a tap ability of him. It's the cost. So you can just tap 2 elves, whether they've come out this turn or 2 turns ago.
Yeah, it's really good to be able. This is going to help you storm off where I made 2 elves with this card. Well, tap them for a mana, play Arbor Elf, trigger my other whenever you cast an elf or whenever an elf enters abilities, such as, let's see what else we got here. There is Wirewood Herald, which is 1 and a green for a 1/1. When it dies, you tutor an elf to right to your hand.
I mean, that's super strong. I don't know if you know this. There's actually about 47 other elves to get when it dies.
Yes, and I know we're not on Aristocrat's deck, but we can definitely get rid of some elves if we need to. We can easily kill this thing. There's also Elvish Warmaster, new from Kaldheim, 2/2 for 2. Whenever a non-token elf enters, you get an elf token. And then 7 mana, your elves get +2/+2. It's like a slightly worse Azuri. But if we're making infinite mana, which we could, or just 14 mana, it's +4/+4, and he produces a lot of elves.
Yeah, I mean, he just makes an elf. He's going to make an elf every single one of your turns.
This is how you win with Birchlaw Rangers. Mm-hmm. Arbor Elf, it costs 0 mana. Okay, I think we can do something with that.
Can we? Yes, we can.
Yes, and lastly is Heirloom Blade. It is an equipment that we just recently shouted out, and I was like, this is the perfect chance to play it. It's 3 mana for an equipment, 1 to equip. Equip creature gets +3/+1, which is a lot, and then when it dies, you reveal cards until you hit something that shares a creature type. That creature goes right in your hand.
I love the idea of hitting something that shares a creature type that's not elf. That's hilarious. That'd be hilarious.
Oh, that would feel great.
Is there another insect in this deck? If
There is one Realm Walker.
Oh, so I like if Realm Walker dies.
No, you mean if Wirewood Symbiote dies, or Realm Walker dies, you could get Wirewood Symbiote.
Yeah, either way, yeah. If the insect dies, you can get the Realm Walker. So hey, that's something.
I think it's pretty spicy to put it on Realm Walker because there's plenty of things that are, like the bigger stuff isn't elves. So you might be able to score one of those that we're about to talk about. Every elf deck has like big creature payoffs that are not elves. They always do. Like Craterhoof would be the example of the non-budget. And apparently the Precon version is Cultivator of Blades, which is complete garbage. So I cut it. It was the first cut.
Yeah, Cultivator of Blades is completely awful. I actually strongly dislike this card, and I don't even... I think what makes me hate it even more is they did a game day promo for it. Forget that. This card's awful.
Implying it was somehow desirable in any way.
Yeah, no. So first we have Regal Force. Comes down, draws for each creature we have. I mean, that's pretty simple.
Well, it's a 7 mana 5/5, draws for each green creature you have. And it's tutorable with Fierce Empath.
Yes. Fierce Empath and Regal Force have been best friends for ages now in EDH.
Yes, Regal Force not even really necessarily that good anymore, but it definitely makes it in budget. Like I might not play it in my competitive Lathril deck or my highly tuned no budget deck, but definitely in the budget deck.
Yeah, that makes sense. Soul the Harvest is the next one. This is the 6 mana 6/6. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card.
Not a bad sort of Regal Force. It's different because ongoing through the multiple turns, you still draw cards. Kind of want to play this when you have like 11 mana, which is pretty soon, honestly.
Oh yeah, so soon. I'm sure by turn 1 you'll have that.
Yeah, so you just play this on turn 2, and then you're going to draw a million cards. And lastly, a little bit of removal I wanted to add. Big chunky boy Terastodon is 8 mana for a 9/9. When it enters the battlefield, you destroy up to 3 target non-creature permanents. For each permanent that dies, the controller gets a 3/3 elephant creature token.
It's just removal. You can blow up any non-creature threats, get them off the field. We're playing this because we're going to make mana really fast because that's what elves do.
I wanted one more big thing to kind of round out our Fierce Empath suite, and I like the fact that this removal is tutorable. Terastodon's not that great, but I think it fills a good role here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so this next category, last one here, we're upgrading cards that kind of use our elf tokens and disposable elf creatures to our advantage in some way. The bad ones, Harvest Season, Tergrid's Shadow, Twin Blade Assassins, and Masked Admirers. Twin Blade Assassins and Masked Admirers are just too expensive. The effect is fine. If they were like 2 less mana each, I'd probably play them. Harvest Season, not an elf. Tergrid's Shadow, also not an elf.
Yeah, that's actually a shadow.
It's a sorcery or an instant. It's an instant.
It's a shadow.
First one we had.
Yeah, the first one we had it was Skull Clamp. For all of our X1s, I mean elves, there's a ton of X1s. They die, you draw 2 cards. If Skull Clamp, one of the best ways to draw. If you have tons of X1s in your deck, this card's amazing.
This card's stupid. It's $5, still worth adding. You know, you take Skull Clamp and Staff. That's 20% of our budget. That's how much those cards end up being worth it.
Yeah, I mean they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. Next, Ashnod's Altar. You can sacrifice an elf, well, a creature, but most likely an elf, and you get Wingding.
2 colorless mana per elf. If you're trying to make this giant crazy turn go off, every elf that's already tapped or every elf token that's not going to serve your purposes right now just goes away for 2 more mana, and then you're going to play more elves.
Yeah, I mean, Ashnod's Altar is one of the best deck outlets ever made.
Yes, and we also have Sadistic Hypnotist, one of the only non-elf, non-fatty creatures in the deck. It's 3 black for a 2/2. I think it's a minion or a human or something. Maybe a human minion. Sacrifice creature, target opponent discards 2 cards. Activate this only at sorcery speed. This is the game winner. You're going to this is how we annihilate people.
Yeah, it's funny. These 3 cards are these are the aristocratic things we're doing. Like the only aristocratic things we're doing, which is why we cut like Eyeblight Callers before.
Yes.
But you can just completely get rid of people's hands. And once they have no hands, I don't know if you know this, they don't have any answers in their hand if they have nothing in their hand.
Yes, they can't answer your board with nothing. This deck also had Poison Tip Archer in it, so I wanted to lean into that a little bit. Poison Tip Archer is really good.
Yeah, that card's just strong. I mean, Poison Tip Archer is very solid by itself, and it's an elf.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that card is just like a hidden gem. Sometimes people just sleep on it.
Also in the deck, that new card, Elderfang Venom, it does the same thing. When I think it's when an elf you control dies, each opponent loses one, you gain one. So there's a little bit of like death payoff. So we can have combos where we're either trying to cast a million elves. Then once we cast a million elves and get a million payoffs from it, we could sack them all for like this big fireball, because there's not too many ways to give all our creatures haste on a budget, but we don't need them to have haste if we just kill them all and drain everybody out.
Yeah, besides anything, putting down these things like the Venom and the Poison Tip Archer, it allows you to just have border protection. No one's going to want to wipe the board if you have 10 elves and they're going to take 20 damage when the board's wiped.
It doesn't matter what you do. I have Ashnod's Altar, and I have 2 death payoffs. Your move. I mean, you're going to take 20 damage when you want to wipe the board either way, because I'll sack in response. Next, Glowspore Shaman, 3/1 for green-black. Recovered that. Saved that reading of the card. No need for a second take. When it enters the battlefield, mill 3, and you can put a land from the grave on top. This is mostly like cheap elf, 1 toughness, love it, mills you some cards. We do care a little bit about having elves in the graveyard, but not for like Abomination of Landwar.
We definitely don't care for Abomination of Landwar because we cut it. So yeah, we don't but we might care otherwise.
That type of stuff is not why we're putting elves in the graveyard.
Yeah,
what else?
We're not trying to up his power by 1. Next, Underrealm Lich. This card's really cool, and BZ's going to read it because he loves it.
I was going to be nice and give it to you, but too late now. 3 green-black for a 4/3. You can pay 4 life and tap it to give it indestructible. But whenever you draw, instead, you look at the top 3, put 1 in your hand and 2 in your graveyard. So it's strictly better draw. You technically can't deck, although that's not anything I consider. But the thing we can do is that this kind of like a one-man wrecking crew, when it's in play, you can just start doing your go-off turns. First of all, 3 times more consistently. Never bricking. You can't flood or, oh man, I drew 5 cards this turn, but 3 of them were lands, so I couldn't do anything. It's like, no, your opponent's probably dead. And it's really going to power this next card, which I wanted some kind of wrath effect. You know, Eyeblight Massacre was trying so hard. I thought maybe let's try something good. Let's Living Death. What does that do?
Living Death basically says exchange all the creatures on the battlefield with all the creatures in the graveyard. So you put all your creatures on the battlefield into the graveyard and all the ones in the graveyard onto the battlefield.
Yeah, well, we have plenty of ways to sack all our creatures. Drain our opponents potentially. Well, get them all back. Do it again and win the game.
For some reason, when you said do it again, it made me think was the Black Eyed Peas song where they say, and do it again.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's
do it again.
Do it. Okay, that song's bad, but this deck is sweet. Just wanted to shout out real quick the other win condition we've been hinting at. Staff of Domination will untap for, I think, 3 and a tap, and then it's 1 to untap. So 4 mana is going to tap Staff and then untap Staff. So we have to have a creature that produces 5 mana. Well, we have Priest Titania, couldn't think of the name, Elvish Archdruid, and then Wirewood Channeler, I think is the name. All 3 of them make mana for elves, and that can be more than 5. So we get infinite mana, draw our entire deck, and then we can, if we don't win with like End-Race Forerunners was already something in the deck, Azuri Infinite plus infinite, Elvish War Leader plus infinite, just absolute, Living Death loops where we use Poison Departure and Elderfang Venom to drain everybody out.
Yeah, again, we can do some Aristocrat type stuff, or we can just do combat because we have lots of elves and lots of ways to really pump those elves up to an unreasonable number.
Did I mention that Staff of Domination is super cool because it actually has a non-infinite function in this deck? All you got to do is have Crazy Turn, tap Lathril, make everybody lose 10, you gain 10, and then just untap just Lathril and use 10 more elves to make everybody lose 10.
I mean, that's a lot of elves.
You just need 21 elves in Staff of Domination. I don't see the issue.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, just 21.
Oh, okay. Well, that seems like a reasonable number to get. I mean, we do have 48 in the deck.
All right, well, how about this? Even if somebody searches your library for 10 cards and exiles them, you can still win the game with infinite mana because Lathril and Staff, once you go infinite mana, you untap all your creatures forever, and then Lathril just drains them out by herself.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's just a way. That's just a way. Any infinite Lathril's going to pay off any infinite mana as long as you have enough elves, which you're going to because you have infinite mana and because you just win.
Yeah, I mean, I want to even shout out because I wasn't like the thing. Wirewood Symbiote can untap each turn is Lathril, so potentially one way to win this game is 14 elves and Wirewood Symbiote, and then you just do it this turn, next turn, that turn. end that turn and you just win one go around. That would be sweet.
How would you win with 14 elves?
Or sorry, you need
40 elves?
44 elves. Or you could do it with 40.
Yeah, I don't foresee that happening, but it certainly is possible as we do have 48 elves in this deck.
Well, you probably need that war leader guy to make some tokens. Lathril can make some tokens too.
Yeah.
That would be so cool.
It's not going to happen, but it would be cool. I would agree with that.
All right, I could gush about this deck all day, but we got to improve the lands. This is simple. We cut 3 forests and 5 swamps. A lot of basics in here.
Yeah, as with all these, they tend to do a little too much when it comes to the basics, but we can fix that because we have a little bit of budget to work with. First, we got Exotic Orchard. Let's us tap for what our opponents can tap for. Hopefully, they have a forest or a swamp, but this is DDH. They most likely will. Temple of Milady, Scryland, Landwire Waste, a nice duel that comes in untapped, actually. It's actually like a tri-land because it taps for waste, or it taps for green or black for 1 damage.
Yes. Woodland Chasm is the black-green Kaldheim tapped duel. I'm going to include these whenever we can. And this deck has Wood Elves in it. Strict bonus when you go get that. Blighted Woodland, I was going to include Mirrored Landscape, but it was already in the deck. So I was all right, Blighted Woodland instead. It just stacks to get 2 basics. It's a nice, decent ramp in the land slot. And the Grim Backwoods, I'm not a fan of this card, but we're on a budget, so that changes everything. I'm not a fan in how we play. It's just too expensive. But on a budget, I think every once in a while, when you're going off and you're doing a lot of things, having 1 extra way to draw a card is nice.
Yeah, the thing about like Woodland Chasm, everything, these tap lands we tend to avoid. Usually, like we're not going to put a Guildgate in here. What makes Woodland Chasm so much better? The types. I mean, if you have any way that these types matter, such as untapping a forest, like our Arbor Elf, exactly, or a Wood Elf, which can go into a deck and get a forest.
Even if we only have 2 payoffs right there, which there are more because there's a Saga that searches for a forest, puts it into play tap. So 3 payoffs where, Arbor Elf can now make black mana. That could be huge, especially if you're untapping Arbor Elf to do other things.
Exactly. This is where they really start to matter, and these are going to be so good on budget. And we added an MDFC, actually. We added Malika Rebirth, which is actually like $1.
Yeah, I think it was like 60 cents. It's trending towards $1, though. These lands are going to be so annoying to get now. Why can't we just get all our Battle Good recoveries at once? That's the only MDFC actually in here. I couldn't really find room. I was so excited about Elves.
Yeah. I was going to put in MDFCs, but then I thought, I could put in an Elf.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not in a budget, you definitely want Turn Timber Symbiosis and you want Agadeem's Awakening. They're both really good. Turn Timber can dig for like this big giant Crater Hoof or Endrace Forerunners you have, and then Agadeem's Awakening, yeah, it's just a Living Death impersonator. You just get back like 6 things.
Yeah, you can get back a ton of things depending on how many different costs you have. So our total budget for the deck, we already went over it, $50. We spent $49.48. Damn, we are good.
You misread. I spent $49.98. I was 2 cents off.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did misread that. Sorry. Damn, we're even better.
Surely some card in Kaldheim has spiked since I brewed this deck to make the deck more than 50. Check it out on TCG Player. TCG Player is never going to say exactly 50 because it doesn't let you toggle the sets the cards from for some reason. So I promise you can get this deck for 50. And I wish we said this in the beginning because I always forget. This is not the laundry deck where it went through a dryer and every card is unplayable low price. This is the TCG mid. You could get this deck low if you really want to do that for like $20.
Yeah, TCG mid, super important. That's what we always do for pricing because this is the price if you really want this deck and you don't want it and you want it to be sleeve playable.
Yeah, like realistic. I want my Magic cards to be in slightly played or near mint condition. None of these cards are super expensive. Actually, it's not like, we put Skull Clamp in this deck, but it's actually the Skull Clamp that's been ripped in half and spit on by a baby, so it's only 5 cents. Like, no. Yeah. It's the $5 Skull Clamp that you know.
Yeah, no, it's not TCG low. We're not doing that here. The original average CMC of the deck was 3.60. The new average CMC, we took it all the way down to 3.28. We always lower these things.
Yeah, you got to lower the average CMC. And the only reason it didn't get even lower is because we added like Terrastodon and Regal Force to this deck. The Elves can go pretty big. Well, most of it is clumped at 1, 2, and 3 mana. 37 changes total, not quite as many as the Reynard deck. That was 41, but this had some more big hitters like Skull Clamp. I love Underrealm Lich in this deck, and then there's staff nomination that's already $15, $16.
Yeah, exactly. BZ will put on the wrong glitch in anything.
I will. And it's like, it's a lot of money. All right, I'll do it.
How much is it?
It's like $5.
I would not have put that in this deck.
I love it.
Yeah, that is something that if BZ wasn't fighting for it, I would have been not in this deck.
Well, the Precon Power-Ups are kind of my shtick, so I get to just put some nonsense in every once in a while. I still think it's good in the deck. I would still advocate for it.
You can. I wouldn't advocate it. If you, I would say, if within this $50 budget, you can get something better for $5.
You could have played Elves of Deep Shadow. Definitely missed out, and I think that might. The problem is,
it's not as flashy or exciting.
I started running out of cards to cut. So, let's say I could splice Underworld Lich into 5 more cards. I'm not even sure what they would be. They might just be lands because the deck kind of got where I wanted it to be, and unless you're making a huge shift, then you got to change a lot of things.
Yeah, that's fair. But that's our video. Special shout outs to all of our patrons. We love you all as much as we can without making you uncomfortable. Obviously, we would never want to make you uncomfortable.
Not even once. Go to the TCG Player link in the description because that link takes you to the TCG Player homepage just as if you Googled it on your computer device. Once you're there, just buy cards like normal. We get a kickback on the order free of charge. You just get to support us and give us money for free.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You don't have to spend anything extra. You're going to buy Magic cards anyway, and you want to support those LGSs, which are selling on TCG Player.
Yeah, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
Your entire lifetime. This is a one-lifetime opportunity for your entire life to, at any point in that lifetime, support us for free.
Yes, and that is a great idea because Magic isn't going anywhere, and we know.
Neither are we.
Yeah, exactly. What else could they buy? If they wanted what's the funkiest thing they can get on TCG Player that we totally didn't make up right now?
Did you say Funkoist thing?
Oh, they can definitely get Funko Pops. We know that.
You got to prep for that new Funko Pop movie coming out.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, so look get all the Patrick Stewart variants. I want to know. I want somebody to do the research for me. How many Patrick Stewart characters are Funko Pops? There's got to be Captain Picard.
Captain Picard, the poop emoji from Emoji Movie, for sure.
There's got to be
for sure.
The poop emoji. That's one of his most favorite characters. I mean, Professor X.
Professor X, another good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
Do you think there's any other Funko Pops of Patrick Stewart?
It depends. It's tough.
Those are his main roles.
He's been in a lot of things.
Yeah, the poop emoji. He's really known for the poop emoji.
Primarily.
Yeah, that's his main thing. Picard probably a secondary role.
Trekkie fans were really upset when they found out that he had been poop for so long and he wasn't Picard. But that's the video. You can leave now.
No,
but we had we want to do a tidbit, or are we gonna wait to start a Twitter battle?
What's your tidbit? Oh, go ahead. Yeah, we can do the tidbit there.
Okay, it's also going to be a Twitter battle, but for anyone watching, you get a little bonus. Many of you, this is very serious, many of you may have noticed in our ranking every commander, Kaldheim, we made a joke, okay? We talked about Harald and Koma go to Castle Ardenvale. Very clever joke, very clever joke. Harald and Koma both being legends in Kaldheim. Castle Ardenvale being the White Castle, analogous to Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, the movie, the famous movie. And something happened that I just, it really upset me. I was watching Limited Resources with Marshall Sutcliffe and LSV, at LSV on Twitter. LSV was talking about the saga, and he must have misspoke because he said, this is what I like to call Harold and Tyvar Go to White Castle or Castle Ardenvale, and then he laughed a lot. Like he had come up with the joke and not stolen it from us, and I just would like some credit for coming up with that hilarious joke.
I'm so sick of you, LSV. I used to love you.
He just thinks he can take whatever he wants. No one will notice because he's big shot famous.
Big shot LSV. He probably walks around like this.
Time to topple the giant, I think. It's time to get some work done.
Yeah. I'll see you on Twitter. Peace out, Sharp Scout.